Have you ever wondered what happens to the love we share with those who cannot speak, but feel so deeply? What becomes of the bond between a human and an animal when life takes its inevitable turns? This is a story about loss, redemption, and the extraordinary power of love that transcends even death itself. Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of despair, your heart shattered by the sudden absence of someone you cherished more than life. That was me, lost, broken, and drowning in grief after losing my wife to cancer. My world had collapsed, leaving behind only silence and emptiness. And then, one rainy afternoon, I found him, a tiny, trembling puppy, abandoned near a dumpster. At first, he was just another burden I didn't ask for. But as days turned into weeks, something incredible happened. This chaotic little creature began to mend the pieces of my broken soul. But just when I thought I'd found a new purpose, tragedy struck again. A moment of chaos changed everything. And yet, it led me to answers I never expected. Answers about love, eternity, and the divine connection we share with all living beings. What did I discover? Why do I now believe that love, no matter where it comes from, is eternal? Stay with me, because this isn't just my story. It's a glimpse into the profound mystery of life, loss, and what lies beyond. Grief and loss are universal experiences, yet they remain deeply personal. No one escapes the weight of sorrow when life takes something or someone precious away. For me, that someone was Aurora, my wife, my best friend, my entire world. She wasn't just a part of my life, she was my life. Together, we built a home filled with laughter, dreams, and shared silences that spoke louder than words. But then, cancer came like a thief in the night, stealing her from me without warning. One moment she was there, vibrant and alive, and the next, she was gone. Just like that. Her death left an emptiness so profound that it felt physical, as though the air had been sucked out of the room. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Everything around me seemed meaningless. The house we once shared became a museum of memories, every corner haunted by her presence. Her favorite chair sat untouched, her books still lined up neatly on the shelves. Even the smell of her perfume lingered faintly, taunting me with what I'd lost. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, but the pain didn't fade. It only grew heavier. I tried to fill the void in every way possible. Work became my refuge, a distraction from the ache inside. I buried myself in projects, meetings, anything to keep my mind occupied. But no matter how busy I kept, the loneliness followed me like a shadow. At night, it was worse. The silence pressed down on me, suffocating and relentless. Sleep eluded me, and when it did come, it brought dreams of Aurora, vivid, beautiful, and heartbreaking. Each morning, I woke up reaching for her, only to remember again that she was gone. It wasn't just the absence of her voice or touch that hurt the most. It was the absence of purpose. Before Aurora's passing, my life had meaning because she was at the center of it. Without her, I felt adrift, untethered from everything that once mattered. Who was I now? What was the point of going on? These questions swirled endlessly in my mind, leaving me paralyzed. Friends and family tried to help, offering kind words and gestures, but their efforts felt hollow. How could they understand? They hadn't walked in my shoes. They hadn't felt the crushing weight of losing someone who meant more to them than life itself. And then, one fateful day, something happened that would change everything. As I trudged home from work, shoulders slumped under the burden of grief, I noticed movement near a dumpster at the edge of an alleyway. At first, I thought it was trash, shifting in the wind, but as I approached, I saw it. a small, trembling puppy, abandoned and alone. Its fur was matted, its eyes wide with fear. It looked up at me, pleading silently for help. In that moment, I felt something stir within me, something I hadn't felt in months. Compassion. I didn't want to care. I didn't want another responsibility, another being to worry about. But as I stood there, staring into those innocent eyes, I realized I couldn't walk away. So, reluctantly, I picked him up and carried him home, telling myself I'd drop him off at a shelter later. Little did I know, this tiny creature would become the catalyst for my healing. He wasn't just a stray puppy. He was a messenger of hope, sent to remind me that even in the darkest moments, love has a way of finding us when we least expect it. And so began a journey, not just of recovery, but of rediscovery. A journey that would teach me that love, no matter how broken we are, always finds a way to heal. When I first brought the puppy home, I didn't know what to expect. Truthfully, I didn't even want him there. My life was already a mess, and the last thing I needed was another responsibility. But as I placed him on the kitchen floor, watching him tremble and look around with wide, curious eyes, something shifted inside me. He was so small, so fragile, and yet he radiated this quiet resilience that caught me off guard. For the first time in months, I felt something. Not joy, not peace, just a flicker of curiosity. Who was this little creature, and why had he ended up here, abandoned and alone? At first, having him around was chaos. He chewed on everything: shoes, couch cushions, even the corners of books. He barked at shadows, raced through the house like a tornado, and left muddy paw prints everywhere. It was exhausting. I wasn't prepared for any of it. Cleaning up after him felt like just another burden, one I hadn't asked for and didn't particularly want. But despite all the mess, there were moments, tiny, fleeting glimpses of connection that began to break through my walls. One evening, after a long day of work, I collapsed onto the couch, feeling the familiar weight of emptiness settle over me. The puppy padded over, his tail wagging hesitantly, and climbed onto the cushion beside me. He didn't jump or bark. He simply sat there, leaning against my leg, his warmth seeping into me. In that moment, something inside me softened. I reached down without thinking and scratched behind his ears. He let out a soft whimper of contentment, and for the first time in months, I smiled. A real smile. It wasn't much, but it was enough to remind me that I was still capable of feeling something other than grief. Over time, our bond deepened in ways I couldn't have anticipated. He became more than just a nuisance or a temporary distraction. He became a companion. Every morning, he greeted me with boundless energy, his tail wagging furiously, as if to say, "We're alive, let's make today count." His enthusiasm was infectious, pulling me out of bed even on days when I wanted nothing more than to stay hidden under the covers. Slowly, he began to fill the silence that had consumed my home. The sound of his paws clicking against the floor, his playful growls during tug-of-war, the rhythmic patter of his breathing as he slept beside me at night. It all added up to something I hadn't realized I desperately needed: noise, light, connection. I started calling him Noah, though I'm not sure why. Maybe because naming him made him feel less like a random stray and more like a part of my life. Or maybe because Noah carried a sense of purpose, a reminder of hope and renewal. Whatever the reason, the name stuck. As weeks turned into months, Noah became my constant. He followed me everywhere, his loyalty unwavering. Even on my darkest days, when I felt like giving up, he stayed by my side, nudging me gently as if to say, "Keep going." What struck me most about Noah was how intuitive he seemed. He had an uncanny ability to sense my moods. When I was angry or frustrated, he'd retreat quietly, giving me space to process. But when sadness crept in, he'd press closer, resting his head on my lap or curling up beside me. There were nights when I cried myself to sleep, overwhelmed by memories of Aurora, and Noah would lie next to me, his presence a silent reassurance that I wasn't entirely alone. Through Noah, I began to see the world differently. Before him, I'd become numb to the beauty around me, consumed by grief and self-pity. But he reminded me to notice the little things, the way sunlight streamed through the windows in the morning, the rustle of leaves in the wind, the simple joy of throwing a ball and watching him chase it with unbridled excitement. These moments may have seemed insignificant, but they added up to something profound, a renewed appreciation for life itself. Looking back, I realize now that Noah wasn't just healing me, he was teaching me. He taught me patience, compassion, and the importance of being present. He showed me that love doesn't have to be complicated, that sometimes the purest forms of connection come from the simplest acts of care and companionship. Most importantly, he reminded me that even in the depths of despair, there is always room for hope. Hope that life can get better. Hope that love, no matter how broken we are, will always find a way to heal us. Noah's presence in my life had become a beacon of light, guiding me out of the darkness that had consumed me for so long. But as our bond deepened, I began to notice something extraordinary about him. Something that went beyond the playful antics and comforting companionship. Noah wasn't just a dog. He was a mirror, reflecting parts of myself I had forgotten or buried beneath layers of grief. He reminded me of who I used to be before Aurora's passing, the person who laughed freely, who found joy in the small things, who believed in the goodness of life. Slowly, piece by piece, he helped me rebuild. One day, while we were out on one of our usual walks, an unexpected moment changed everything. We were strolling down a quiet street, lined with towering trees, their leaves rustling softly in the breeze. The sun was setting, casting golden hues across the sky. It was peaceful, until it wasn't. Out of nowhere, a car came speeding around the corner, its tires screeching as it careened toward us. My heart froze. In that split second, all I could think about was protecting Noah. Without hesitation, I lunged forward, grabbing him and pulling him out of harm's way. But the impact was inevitable. The car struck us both, sending us tumbling to the ground. Pain shot through my body, sharp and searing, and then everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't lying on the pavement anymore. Instead, I found myself standing in a vast glowing field. The air was warm and filled with a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. Around me stretched an endless expanse of lush greenery, bathed in soft golden light. It was breathtakingly beautiful, yet strangely familiar, as if I had been here before in a dream. And then I saw him. Standing a few feet away was Jesus, radiating kindness and love. His gaze was gentle but piercing, as though he could see straight into my soul. "Louise," he said, his voice calm and steady, "you've carried your pain for far too long." I wanted to speak, to ask questions, but words failed me. Instead, I stood there, overwhelmed by his presence. He continued, "Noah was sent to you for a reason. Your bond is more than human and animal. It is spiritual, a connection between two kindred souls." I struggled to process what he was saying. But why? I managed to choke out. "Why would you send him to me?" Jesus smiled, a knowing smile that seemed to hold all the answers. "Because you needed him as much as he needed you. Animals are gifts from God, created to bring love, joy and healing into our lives. They may not possess souls like humans, but they carry a piece of God's Spirit within them. Nothing created by God is ever truly lost. His words struck a chord deep within me. For so long, I had wondered if animals held any significance beyond their earthly existence. Would Noah be okay? Would I ever see him again? These questions had lingered in the back of my mind, unspoken but heavy. Now they were being answered in ways I never imagined. Jesus went on to explain that animals, especially those who form deep bonds with humans, play a vital role in God's plan. Their purpose isn't limited to this world, he said. They are instruments of love, designed to teach us compassion, patience, and gratitude. And when their time here ends, they return to me, to a place where suffering ceases and harmony reigns. He then showed me a vision, a glimpse of eternity. Before me appeared a perfect world, untouched by pain or sorrow. Animals roamed freely, their coats gleaming, their movements graceful and joyful. Birds soared overhead, singing melodies that echoed through the skies. And amidst it all, I saw Noah. He looked healthy and happy, bounding toward me with the same boundless energy I had come to adore. Tears streamed down my face as I realized the truth. Love, whether between humans or animals, is eternal. It transcends death, weaving itself into the very fabric of creation. As the vision faded, Jesus placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. You will see Noah again, he promised, and not just him. All creatures who have loved and been loved will find their place in my kingdom. Trust in this, and let it guide you. With those final words, I felt myself being pulled back to consciousness. The pain returned, sharp and overwhelming, but it was accompanied by a newfound sense of hope. When I opened my eyes, I was in a hospital bed, surrounded by doctors and nurses. One of them told me that Noah had survived the accident, though he was critically injured. Despite the odds, he was expected to recover. That night, as I lay awake, I thought about everything I had seen and heard. The weight of despair that had once crushed me now felt lighter, replaced by a profound sense of purpose. Noah had saved me, not just physically, but spiritually. Through him, I had learned that love knows no bounds, that even the smallest acts of kindness can ripple outward and transform lives. And most importantly, I had discovered that nothing, no amount of loss, no depth of grief, can ever sever the ties of love. Love endures, always. Awakening in the hospital was like stepping back into reality after a dream that felt more vivid than life itself. My body ached, every movement sending waves of pain through me, but my mind was alive with clarity. The vision I had experienced lingered in my thoughts, as real and tangible as the sterile white walls of the hospital room. Jesus' words echoed in my mind. Your bond is more than human and animal. It is spiritual, a connection between two kindred souls. Those words carried a weight I couldn't ignore. They weren't just comforting, they were transformative. For the first time, I began to see Noah not just as a companion, but as a teacher, a guide sent to lead me out of the darkness. The doctors told me that Noah had survived the accident, though he was still in critical condition. His injuries were severe, and while they assured me he was receiving the best care possible, they warned me to prepare for the worst. But something deep inside me refused to accept that outcome. I had seen him in that vision, healthy, vibrant, full of life. I clung to that image like a lifeline, believing with every fiber of my being that he would pull through. After all, hadn't he already saved me? Hadn't he taught me how to live again when I thought I was beyond saving? In the days that followed, I spent every waking moment by Noah's side. The veterinary clinic allowed me to visit him regularly, and I would sit beside his kennel, talking to him softly, stroking his fur whenever the nurses said it was okay. At first, he barely moved, his breathing shallow and labored, but slowly, almost imperceptibly, he began to improve. One day, I noticed his tail give a faint wag when he heard my voice. Another day, he managed to lift his head slightly, his eyes meeting mine with the same warmth and trust I had come to cherish. Each small sign of progress filled me with hope, reinforcing what I now knew to be true. Love has the power to heal, even against impossible odds. As Noah grew stronger, so did I. Watching him fight for his life inspired me to confront my own struggles with renewed determination. I realized that grief doesn't disappear, it evolves. Aurora's absence would always leave a void in my heart, but her memory no longer consumed me. Instead, she became a source of strength, reminding me of the love we shared and the lessons she had taught me about resilience and grace. And Noah? He became the bridge between my past and my future, helping me carry Aurora's legacy forward while embracing the possibilities of a new chapter. During this time, I found myself reflecting on Jesus' revelation about animals. He had explained that while animals don't possess souls in the same way humans do, they carry God's Spirit within them. This idea resonated deeply with me. Animals are pure expressions of divine love, uncomplicated, unconditional, and selfless. They remind us of what truly matters: connection, compassion, and presence. Through Noah, I had learned to appreciate these qualities, not only in him, but also in myself. He had shown me that love isn't limited to grand gestures or profound declarations. It exists in the quiet moments, the gentle touches, the unspoken understanding between two beings who need each other. But perhaps the most profound lesson I took from this experience was the idea that nothing created by God is ever lost. This wasn't just about Noah or animals. It was about everything. Every relationship, every act of kindness, every moment of love leaves an indelible mark on the world. Even when someone or something is gone, their impact remains, woven into the fabric of our lives. Aurora's love hadn't vanished when she passed away. It had shaped me, guided me, and ultimately led me to Noah. And Noah's love, in turn, had brought me closer to God, opening my eyes to truths I might never have discovered otherwise. This realization gave me a sense of peace I hadn't known was possible. Life is fleeting, fragile, and unpredictable, but it is also beautiful, precisely because of its impermanence. We are here to connect, to love, and to leave imprints on one another's hearts. Whether those connections last a lifetime or only a brief moment, they matter. They shape us, define us, and remind us of our place in something greater than ourselves. As Noah continued to recover, I made a promise to myself to live differently moving forward. I vowed to honor Aurora's memory by cherishing the love she gave me and sharing it with others. I resolved to treat every relationship, human or animal, with the reverence it deserves. And above all, I committed to staying open to the lessons life has to offer, knowing that even in the darkest moments, there is always light waiting to guide us home. Noah eventually regained his strength, bounding around the house with the same boundless energy that had first driven me crazy. Watching him play, I felt a surge of gratitude, not just for his recovery, but for everything he had taught me. He had been more than a stray puppy rescued from a dumpster. He had been a messenger of hope, a reminder that love endures, transcends, and transforms. Through him, I had rediscovered purpose, faith, and the beauty of simply being alive. And as I looked at him, wagging his tail and gazing up at me with those soulful eyes, I knew one thing for certain. Love, whether between humans or animals, is eternal. Always. The journey I had been on with Noah was unlike anything I could have imagined. From the moment I found him abandoned near that dumpster, to the accident that nearly took both our lives, every step had led me closer to a truth I couldn't have uncovered on my own. But it wasn't until Jesus revealed the deeper spiritual significance of animals and their role in God's creation that I truly began to grasp the magnitude of what Noah had brought into my life. This revelation didn't just change how I viewed animals, it transformed how I saw love itself. Jesus' words stayed with me long after the vision faded. Animals, though they do not possess souls like humans, carry a piece of God's Spirit within them. At first, this idea seemed abstract, almost too profound to fully comprehend. How could something as simple as an animal, a being without the complexities of human thought or emotion, carry a fragment of divinity? Yet, the more I reflected on it, the clearer it became. Animals are pure expressions of God's love. They live in the present moment, free from judgment or pretense. Their loyalty, their capacity for unconditional affection, their ability to heal us without saying a word, these qualities aren't accidental. They are reflections of something sacred, woven into their very nature. Noah embodied this truth in ways I hadn't recognized before. His presence in my life wasn't random or coincidental. It was purposeful, divinely orchestrated to guide me back to myself when I had lost all sense of direction. Through him, I had learned to see beyond grief and pain, to rediscover joy and meaning in the simplest moments. He reminded me that love doesn't require complexity to be profound. Sometimes, the most powerful connections come from silence, touch, and shared presence. Noah had shown me that even in his vulnerability, as a small, trembling puppy abandoned by the world, he carried within him a spark of divine love that was capable of transforming lives. But Jesus' revelation went even further. He explained that animals who form deep bonds with humans hold a special place in God's plan. These creatures, though temporary companions in this earthly realm, leave lasting imprints on our hearts. And because of that bond, they will one day be reunited with us in eternity. This promise filled me with an overwhelming sense of peace. For so long, I had feared losing Noah again, terrified that death would separate us permanently. But now, I understood that our connection transcended the boundaries of this life. Love, no matter where it comes from, is eternal. This realization also challenged me to rethink my perspective on animals as a whole. Growing up, I had never given much thought to the spiritual significance of animals. To me, they were simply creatures, pets, livestock, wildlife. But now, I saw them as gifts, entrusted to us by God, to teach, comfort, and inspire. Their spirits may differ from ours, but they are no less valuable. In fact, their simplicity makes them vessels of pure love, untainted by the doubts, fears, and insecurities that often cloud human relationships. They remind us of what it means to love freely, without conditions or expectations. As I processed these truths, I began to notice the impact animals had on others around me. A neighbor's dog helped her cope with anxiety. A friend's cat provided companionship during a difficult divorce. Even stories of therapy animals visiting hospitals and nursing homes highlighted the healing power of animals in ways science alone couldn't explain. Each of these examples reinforced what I had come to believe. Animals are instruments of grace, sent to remind us of God's love in tangible, relatable ways. This newfound understanding also deepened my appreciation for Noah. He wasn't just a pet, he was a teacher, a healer, and a bridge between my past and my future. Through him, I had reconnected with Aurora's memory, not as a source of pain, but as a reminder of the love we shared and the lessons she had taught me. She had always cherished animals, often saying they were God's little angels on earth. Now I finally understood what she meant. Animals don't judge us or demand anything from us. They simply exist to love and be loved, offering us glimpses of heaven in their unwavering devotion. As Noah recovered fully and returned to his playful, energetic self, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. My life no longer revolved solely around loss and longing. Instead, it was filled with gratitude for Aurora, for Noah, and for the countless ways love manifests in our lives. I realized that God speaks to us through many voices, and sometimes the quietest ones carry the loudest messages. Noah's story was proof of that. It wasn't just about survival or recovery. It was about redemption, faith, and the enduring power of love that transcends even death. Now, whenever I look at Noah, I see more than just a dog. I see a symbol of hope, a testament to the fact that love endures, transforms, and heals. Whether it's between humans, animals, or the divine, love is the thread that binds us all together. And as I continue this journey, I know that the lessons Noah has taught me will stay with me forever, guiding me toward a deeper understanding of life, love, and eternity. One of the most profound moments in my life came when Jesus showed me a vision of a restored creation, a world where animals lived in perfect harmony, free from suffering, pain, or fear. It was unlike anything I had ever seen or imagined. The scene unfolded before me like a painting brought to life, vibrant and breathtaking in its beauty. Rolling hills stretched endlessly, blanketed in lush green grass that shimmered under a golden sun. Trees towered majestically, their leaves rustling softly in a warm breeze. Streams flowed crystal clear, reflecting the sky above, while birds soared gracefully overhead, their songs filling the air with melodies so pure they seemed otherworldly. But what struck me most about this vision wasn't just its physical perfection. It was the sense of peace that permeated everything. There was no trace of conflict, no hint of struggle. Animals of all kinds roamed freely, unafraid and unhindered by the dangers that plague our current reality. Lions lay beside lambs without aggression. Wolves played alongside deer, and even creatures I had never seen before moved with an effortless grace. It was as though the natural order had been rewritten, not to eliminate predators or prey, but to remove the need for harm altogether. This was a place where survival wasn't dictated by instinct or fear, but by love, pure, unconditional love. As I took in this sight, Jesus spoke gently. This is my original design for creation, a world where all living beings coexist in harmony, reflecting the goodness and creativity of their Creator. His words resonated deeply within me, stirring emotions I couldn't fully articulate. For so long, I had accepted the brokenness of the world as inevitable, the violence, the suffering, the loss. But here, standing in this vision of perfection, I realized that what we experience now isn't how things are meant to be. It's a temporary state, marred by sin and separation, but it won't last forever. One day, God will restore everything, making it new again. Then, Jesus turned to me and said something that left me speechless. All animals who have formed deep bonds with humans will find their place here. They will be reunited with those they loved, and together you will share in the joy of eternity. As he spoke, I saw Noah appear in the distance, running toward me with boundless energy. His coat gleamed in the sunlight, his tail wagging furiously, and his eyes sparkled with the same warmth and loyalty I had come to adore. Tears filled my eyes as I knelt down to greet him, overwhelmed by the realization that this reunion wasn't just symbolic, it was real. This was a promise, a guarantee that love transcends even death itself. The vision didn't stop there. Jesus continued to show me glimpses of this restored creation, each one more awe-inspiring than the last. I saw fields where horses galloped freely, their manes flowing like silk in the wind. I watched as dolphins leapt joyfully through waves that sparkled like diamonds. Even insects, often overlooked in our daily lives, played vital roles in this harmonious ecosystem, their tiny movements contributing to the balance and beauty of the whole. Every creature, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, had a purpose and a place in this divine masterpiece. What struck me most was how alive everything felt, not just physically, but spiritually. These weren't merely animals existing in a pristine environment. They were beings radiating joy, contentment, and freedom. Their spirits were at peace because they were exactly as God intended them to be, whole, unbroken, and deeply connected to Him. This was a glimpse of heaven, a foretaste of what awaits us beyond this life, and knowing that animals would be part of it filled me with an indescribable sense of comfort. When the vision faded and I returned to the present, I carried this image with me like a treasure hidden in my heart. It changed the way I viewed not only animals, but the entire scope of creation. Everything around us, the trees, the rivers, the skies, is a reflection of God's handiwork, pointing us toward the ultimate restoration He has planned. In this fallen world, we may experience pain, loss, and imperfection, but these are not the end of the story. One day, all things will be made right, and we will experience the fullness of God's kingdom in ways we can scarcely comprehend. This truth gave me a renewed sense of hope and purpose. It reminded me that nothing we cherish is ever truly lost. Whether it's a beloved pet, a cherished memory, or a relationship cut short by death, everything finds its fulfillment in eternity. Love doesn't end. It evolves, expands, and becomes part of something greater. And as I looked at Noah lying beside me, his presence a constant reminder of God's faithfulness, I knew that our bond wasn't confined to this lifetime. It was eternal, woven into the fabric of God's plan for creation. Now, whenever I see an animal, a dog wagging its tail, a bird singing in a tree, or even a squirrel darting across my yard, I think of that vision. I remember that every creature carries a piece of God's Spirit, a fragment of His love reflected in their existence. And I am reminded that one day, we will all be reunited in a world where suffering is no more, and love reigns supreme. Until then, I live with gratitude for the lessons animals teach us, for the connections we share, and for the promise of a future where harmony and peace prevail. The days and weeks that followed Noah's recovery were unlike anything I had experienced before. Watching him regain his strength, bounding around the house with the same boundless energy that had once overwhelmed me, filled me with a sense of awe and gratitude I hadn't thought possible. He wasn't just a dog anymore. He was a living testament to the resilience of love, a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable pain, healing is always within reach. As I looked at him, wagging his tail and gazing up at me with those soulful eyes, I realized something profound. Noah's purpose wasn't just to heal me. It was to show me that love, no matter where it comes from, is eternal and divinely significant. In the aftermath of the accident, my perspective on life shifted in ways I couldn't have anticipated. The vision Jesus had shown me, the promise of restored creation, the assurance that animals who form deep bonds with humans will find their place in eternity, had planted seeds of hope deep within me. These weren't abstract concepts or distant promises. They were truths I could feel in my bones. Every time I saw Noah, I was reminded of the spiritual connection we shared, a bond that transcended biology and circumstance. It wasn't just about him being my pet or companion. It was about two souls, human and animal, intertwined by love and purpose. This realization brought clarity to so much of what I had been struggling with since Aurora's passing. For years I had felt adrift, untethered from the world, and unsure of how to move forward. Grief had consumed me, leaving little room for joy or purpose. But through Noah, I found a new way to honor Aurora's memory, not by clinging to the past, but by embracing the present and looking toward the future. She had always believed in the goodness of animals, often saying they were God's little messengers, sent to teach us lessons we might otherwise overlook. Now, I understood exactly what she meant. Noah had taught me patience, compassion, and the importance of being fully present. He had shown me that love doesn't have to be complicated to be meaningful. It can exist in the simplest gestures, the quiet moments, the unspoken understanding between two beings who need each other. As Noah continued to thrive, I began to notice subtle changes in myself as well. I was more open, more willing to engage with the world around me. Friends and family remarked on how different I seemed, lighter, more at peace. Where once I had shut people out, fearing their inability to understand my grief, I now welcomed their company, eager to share the lessons I had learned. Conversations that would have once felt forced or awkward became opportunities to reflect on the beauty of connection, whether between humans, animals, or God Himself. I started volunteering at a local animal shelter, inspired by the idea that every creature has value and deserves love. It was my small way of giving back, of honoring the journey Noah and I had been on together. But perhaps the greatest change was internal. I no longer feared loss the way I once did. Of course, the thought of losing Noah still terrified me, but I had come to accept that our bond wasn't limited to this life. Love endures, transcends, and transforms. Whether it's between humans, animals, or the divine, it leaves an indelible mark on the soul, shaping us in ways we may not fully understand until eternity. This knowledge didn't eliminate the pain of potential loss. It softened it, reminding me that love isn't diminished by death. Instead, it is magnified, made eternal by the very act of existing. Now, as I sit here writing this, with Noah curled up at my feet, I am filled with a deep sense of gratitude. Gratitude for Aurora, whose love laid the foundation for everything I hold dear. Gratitude for Noah, whose presence pulled me out of despair and taught me how to live again. And gratitude for God, who used both of them to guide me toward a deeper understanding of love, faith, and purpose. My journey hasn't been easy. In fact, it has been marked by pain, struggle, and uncertainty. But it has also been rich with meaning, growth, and redemption. To anyone reading this, I want you to know that your story matters. The connections you form, the lives you touch, the love you give and receive, it all matters. Whether it's a person, an animal, or even the natural world around you, every relationship carries the potential to transform you. to teach you something about yourself and about God. So cherish those moments, however fleeting they may seem. Lean into the love that surrounds you and trust that it will carry you through even the darkest times. Because in the end, love is what remains. Love is eternal. Love is divine. And through it, we find our way home. As I reflect on this journey, I'm struck by how much one small act of kindness, rescuing a trembling puppy from a cold, dark corner, could ripple outward and transform not just my life, but my understanding of love and connection. Noah didn't just teach me about healing. He reminded me that love isn't confined to the boundaries we often place around it. It doesn't matter if it's between two people, a human and an animal, or even ourselves and the world. It is always sacred, always eternal. This realization has changed me in ways I never anticipated. It's made me softer, more open, and deeply aware of the interconnectedness of all living things. The key lesson here is simple yet profound. Love transcends. Whether it's the bond we share with our pets, the memories of loved ones who are no longer with us, or the quiet moments of grace we find in nature, love endures. It shapes us, guides us, and reminds us that nothing created with purpose is ever truly lost. And perhaps most importantly, it calls us to see the divine in everything, to honor the relationships we have, no matter how fleeting they may seem. So now, I invite you to take this moment to reflect. Who or what has taught you about unconditional love? How can you carry that lesson forward into your own life? Maybe it's reaching out to someone who needs comfort, adopting an animal in need, or simply sitting quietly to appreciate the beauty around you. Let this story inspire you to question, to explore, and to engage in conversations about what love means to you. Because in doing so, we don't just honor those who've touched our lives, we keep their legacy alive. Let's choose to live with open hearts, knowing that every act of love leaves an indelible mark on the world and on eternity itself.